I'm Jonathan Martins. I'm 27 years old and I've been in Whatcom County by far the majority of my life. Well, I was born here, so I've spent a little bit of time living in other places as a kid, but then we moved back up here when I was about in middle school. And I think the thing that makes me want to stay is I have family here, all of my friends are here. I have spent a lot of time investing in this community, and yeah, I would love to stick around to see the fruits of that. I do marketing and communications work. I've done a lot of work for nonprofits, and I'm now working as a freelancer. I'm doing marketing strategy. Housing it's a challenge in our community. We've had lots of landlords where you're paying $1,600, $2,000 a month for one bedroom that was built in 1970, has never ever been touched since then, is basically falling apart, and the landlord refuses to do repairs. That's been like previous experiences that we've had in multiple different apartments. I would love to own a house one day. That is definitely a big goal. At this point, it does not look like that is looking like a strong possibility. I would love to live in Whatcom County. It's my home. So I'd love to be able to stay here, but I don't know if that would be a possibility with owning a home. I think owning a home is really, it's a way of being planted in the community, right? It's a sign that you are committed to this community and to sticking with this community. From what I've heard from most of my friends, all of my friends would love to own a home here, and very few, if any of us, see that as like a real possibility. I have one or two friends who've been able to make it happen, and that typically has been either from an inheritance or because their parents were able to help them with the down payment. And as someone whose parents are not in that position, I don't necessarily see how to make that happen. And I think a lot of my friends are in that same position, especially with wages in Bellingham being what they are. Just recently, a report done assessed it was well over 100 cities of varying sizes, and we're the most expensive, I believe, mid-sized city or small city for housing. Seattle is a ratio of, I think, 7 times the median income as the average house price. In Bellingham, it's 12. A lot of people in Bellingham and Whatcom County are like, wow, Seattle's so unaffordable. And it's like, actually, as far as housing prices, it's significantly more affordable than Bellingham, almost twice as affordable as Bellingham, which is just a wild thing to think about. I have already had a significant number of friends leave because they wanted to buy a house and they couldn't afford to here. They wanted to have kids and they couldn't afford to here. It's quite a significant number of people that have left. A lot of people I grew up with no longer live here for those reasons. It hurts our community deeply because, I mean, those are people that have been connected to and invested in our community since they were born. And to lose those people is really, really challenging for the health of our community. United Way dropped their 2025 ALICE report just earlier this year. For a family to be financially stable with children, if you're not factoring in the cost of childcare, costs $151,000 a year. And that's like, all you're doing is you're covering the bare minimum expenses, and then you have 10% a month to put into savings. That's all it is, and that's $151,000 a year in Bellingham. And that would have to be on a single income because it doesn't cover the cost of childcare. If you talk about covering the cost of childcare, it's over $190,000 a year to have 2 kids in Bellingham. I don't know how to get a job in Bellingham that pays me $150,000 a year, or like for my wife and I to get jobs that pay us like almost $100,000 a year. Like that, yeah, I don't know how. You know, it's been something that I know everyone our age is constantly thinking about, is like, can I afford to stay here? Can I have kids here or not? I mean, just thinking even more holistically, like when you lose the young people, you're not gonna have more kids that are being raised in the area, right? And so essentially Bellingham then turns into a retirement town, but without the younger population, even just like tax-wise. You lose the working population, you lose the people who are paying taxes, who are supporting those who are like aging out of that. If Bellingham gets hollowed out at the bottom, the entire system collapses. The median income in Bellingham is $58,000 a year. It is nowhere close to like what you actually have to make to even be able to like have a family in Bellingham. It's so true. I think we think about like, oh, well, you know, we want to be doing like these incredible things like building the new jail or allocating more land to parks and doing wetland conservation efforts and like all of this stuff. And it's really, really incredible stuff. But if we want to keep doing those incredible things as a community and making Bellingham a community that people want to live in, we have to think about the fact that we need to have a solid tax base in order to do that, which means people need to be paid fair and living wages. So if people aren't making money, then you're not getting any tax revenue, right? So people need to be paid fair and living wages, and they also need to be able to live here. Because if people have to move, you're no longer making taxes from them. Whatcom County as a whole, but in Bellingham, like, we've lost a lot of jobs that traditionally have paid living wages. I think about, like, so many major employers have significantly scaled back or even like cut operations in Bellingham. I have been unemployed since May, and there's just not jobs in the area in my field, which was kind of what made me start doing some freelance work, and still looking for full-time employment and would love that. But yeah, there's not many job opportunities, not many people hiring. Like, on average, jobs in my field that are, I would say, relevant to my experience and stuff are posted maybe once every 2 weeks, maybe. It's like Bellingham needs more jobs in order to support even just the people that are here. People who can get qualified for a mortgage in Whatcom County have to really over leverage themselves. And so then we get into positions where, you know, foreclosures happen and things like that because the amount that they have to pay every month is not sustainable, right? It's really important that businesses take that into account. And it's hard because the more that housing costs, the more businesses have to pay. I would love to be in Bellingham. It's a place I love. It's where I've grown up. I would love to be here. And I would love to be able to have a family and have a house. I want a garden. Like, I would love a garden so much. It's one of my favorite things to do, and I just can't do it because we live in an apartment. I would love to have a job that pays me enough for me to not have to worry about whether the bills are going to be met each month, you know? Because I think that kind of insecurity, you know, it really also affects future generations. And so having kids in a household where, like, you're constantly worried about, like, if there's going to be food next month or things like that, it's been proven that, like, that harms kids' developments in certain ways, and in a lot of ways creates, like, some of those generational cycles of poverty and things like that. So most people in Bellingham who are raising kids today are doing it in apartments and townhomes. There is not a lot of people who can afford housing. There are just, frankly, some psychological downsides for kids being raised in apartments and townhomes. Not being able to go outside in the yard and run around and play. Play is really important for kids. And right now, as a society also, like, we are seeing, I think partly as a result of this, a lot of push towards, like, oh, kids on iPads and watching TV all the time and things like that, right? And those aren't bad in small doses, but it has been proven over and over and over again that that being their form of play has deep, long-term psychological and, like, really even physiological effects on children. Kids need to be outside. They need to be able to play. They need to run around and hang out with other kids. Like, that needs to be a part of their environment for them to be healthy. Bellingham is a community that loves and enjoys the outdoors. That is a core part of Bellingham's identity. And while I very much support we should increase housing density and stuff in areas, we also need to consider that for a lot of people, they want to have a yard just so that they can enjoy the outdoors. I would say to, like, our city and county leaders, we need more housing. We need to have affordable places to live. You're going to lose your entire younger generation if you do not provide them with jobs that pay well enough for them to have family and affordable housing. If we don't give the younger generation those two things, they don't want to leave. You're forcing them out.